I got a chance to work with an organization called the International Society of Political Psychology professors, all of them, or they were doctoral students, the rest of them. Now, I'm used to working with corporations and business people, not academics. And I started my first conference with them in Seattle. And I thought, well, hey, this is easy. This is in the United States. Great. My second one was in Mexico. And we sort of danced around the world. But I think probably the one that was the most fascinating and the most interesting, and the one that really shows how the definition phase, the planning phase, and the implementation phase of project management really sings in creating the best conferences. So we traveled the world, tried to decide where we were going to do our next conference. And one of the universities said, hey, we'd like to have it here in Paris. Would you like to come to Paris? I don't know. Paris. Well, I went in January to Paris to look at what that would look like. Where's the university? Where would the sleeping rooms be? What kinds of things can we do as far as events and that kind of thing? We had 3 feet of snow. It was not fun, but I trudged around Paris and began the definition phase of project management, which was looking at the who, what, where, when, how, and why are we doing it here. It was very simple who we were. It was the International Society of Political Psychology. What we were doing was their international conference for that particular year. Why were we doing it that year? Because the university wanted us there. And so I worked with the university around things like, where are we going to stay? How many hotel rooms are we going to have? What does the conference look like as far as the timing and the types of projects and that kind of thing? We looked at, where do we want to go? So oftentimes, even though we had a very clear structure of presentations that were done throughout the day, because this was an academic conference, so people were presenting their papers and their doctoral work and all of this, we also had keynote speakers. We also went places. So, where are we going to go? Well, Paris is such an interesting town to be in. And the people at the university were great at, let's take her here. Oh, how about here and there and everywhere in the city of Paris. And out of that, I had to pull, where are we going to host the Junior Scholar event? Where are we going to host our big celebration? Where are we going to take people for dinner at night? What kinds of tours do we want to do? Well, I remember we did Boston and we were looking at the tours in Boston. And I thought, ooh, this is kind of fun. We had one tour that was given 4 different times with 4 different focal points. It was exactly the same tour 4 different times. And people who took it all thought they were all different tours. They didn't realize that the tour company was taking them to the same places, just giving them different speeches. So I thought, what can we do in Paris that would be much more interesting and much more fun? So needless to say, we found some really great places and not your typical tourist traps. Like we did go to the Eiffel Tower, but we did it from a different perspective. Why was it built? What was the political arena around that at that particular point in time? We took the Batmouche. And again, the same thing. We looked at it from a political psychology perspective. Very different than what most tourists get. And that's what made the definition and the planning phase for these conferences so unique. Every meeting that we had, I had to present, what's the new structure look like? What are we planning on doing? How long is it going to be? What day is it going to be on? And that kind of thing. And then we also had a book exhibit And they got a chance, the scholars got a chance to exhibit their own books, exhibit books of people who wrote like them, and those kinds of things. And we created these huge book exhibits, which also included the papers from every presentation that happened during the conference that people could pick up. Those were free, the books they had to pay for. And it was just so much fun to be able to define why are we going there? What are we going to do? The who, what, where, when, how, and extent. And then to plan how do we make that all come together in such a way that it's cohesive and that people really enjoy it. Then you get to the fun piece, implementation. And that's where all the potential problem analysis that you do falls into place. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if we have a strike? What if we have a flood? What if we have excess heat? What if we have excess cold? What if somebody gets stuck at the airport or gets stuck in their city and can't get out and they're the keynote speaker? What do you do? What's your backup plan? So we made sure that we looked at how can we prevent these things from happening? And many of them we couldn't. And if they do happen, what is our plan for working around it? And that's where the creativity of project management comes into play. Yes, you have a lot of creativity when you define what is it, the plan that we're doing. There's a lot of creativity in the planning pieces themselves and how they all fit together. We had huge boards that showed when everything was supposed to happen. And we did them all with magnetic strips so that we could move them around until we finally had a final plan, which we then took a picture of and put it into our program book. And that's the wonder of project management.